like, oh my God, Los Angeles is burning down. No, this is a concentration of a few blocks in the city of Los Angeles. And yes, I don't condone that violence. I don't condone the looting, none of that, because it takes away the attention from what's actually happening to people.
Big Boy's
Big
Neighborhood,
Boy.
beautiful day in the neighborhood, ladies and gentlemen, friend of the neighborhood, Wendy Carrillo, welcome back to the neighborhood. First off, former assembly member, now running for state senate.
Damn right.
Wendy Carrillo, welcome back to the neighborhood, huh?
My favorite title, though,
Yeah.
is Big Boy's political correspondent.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. You make us look so good.
You smart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's smart. Yeah,
I graduated, you know.
As you should. At least you did. But you know what's crazy about that, Wendy? We would really just go like, Wendy Carrillo's up in here. What's going on, Wendy? And then we just back up like, But right now, and Jason, our producer, he just made a joke. He said, wow, welcome back. He said, really a slow news day, but it's a lot going on right now, Wendy. How in tune have you been seeing what's going down, especially here in Los Angeles? Well, really, we could just say the United States, but especially right here in Los Angeles.
Yeah. So ICE protests on the street, National Guard on the street, Marines being deployed to Los Angeles. I was at the first rally of the first day where the garment workers were detained, where U.S. citizens like labor leader David Huerta was detained for simply being there and fighting for justice, and was recently released. I was there at the protest. I went down to where the families and attorneys were trying to get into the federal building to talk to people that had been detained, were not allowed in, witnessed firsthand how due process was being denied, constitutional rights being denied. I saw a video of Maxine Waters wanting to enter the federal building, Representative Maxine Waters, only to have the door slammed in her face.
Yeah, what's going on here?
It is I believe, a complete destruction of our Constitution and our First Amendment rights to free speech and to protest. But most importantly, due process, warrants, constitutional rights for anyone in this country to potentially be detained by masked individuals who don't show their face, don't show their badge. Anywhere else, you know what that's called? It's called abduction.
Yeah, I was saying,
Disappearance.
I saw you speaking about that. And it's wild because I was just looking at something I shared with the neighborhood today, and it was someone that ran in, and they said that they were ICE, and they hooked the lady up, and they robbed her shop. Because now you're just thinking if somebody come in and that's all they're saying, you're expecting something now. And it's a different sign of the times. And like you said, no badge. Or the badges or the nameplates covered up, mask. It's like thieves in the night that we're seeing right now. Yeah. What do these ICE raids mean?
Well, allegedly, right, Donald Trump wanted to go after criminals, rapists, gang members. But now he's going after gardeners and warehouse workers and seamstresses and people dropping off their kids at schools. He's going after, there are federal agents at graduations across Los Angeles instilling fear and chaos. So that is exactly what he wants. He wants us to live in a militarized state to show this is like a kindergartner throwing a tantrum. And so, but the reality is that families are being separated. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of chaos. And ultimately, what I see is just the continuation of family separation and a destruction of our Constitution and our fundamental due process and civil rights.
And Wendy, we're getting a lot of people as we put things on social media, as we talk about it on air, we're getting a lot of pushback and people say, oh, you're not talking to you. And I've invited people to come, but for some reason when you invite them, they never show up. But we're hearing people, they got it to the country. But when I look on profiles, they're mainly Latino.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I'll go to the profile, and not that just because this, you got to be this, but yeah, we're getting a lot of opposition and a lot of negative comments because we're saying about rights and immigration and the way that they are hitting graduations and they're in Oxnard they chased a man at work through the field. Which is supposed to be kind of like off limits. And I'm pretty sure at the field, doing his job. I'm pretty sure.
Picking strawberries.
Yeah, and maybe he's selling fentanyl. But really, because when we're talking about, I'll keep hearing these fentanyl dealers. And I'm like, stop it. I'm going to work for 12 to 15 hours. Then after that, I'm going to go break the law in any capacity.
Right.
Stop it. And then we look at what's going on now and the protest that's happening here in Los Angeles. And the way that Trump is putting the military here, the way that rights are being denied. And it's wild because when you look at the insurrection, you let over 1,000 people out that did things that were worse, that actually took the tear gas canisters and turned it on people, that went through, and people that were in the building, you had them fearing for their lives, locking themselves in offices. You had people dying, and you're supposed to protect the badge and protect peace, but then you let all those people go, and now some of those are even reoffending. Mm-hmm. That's what we're dealing with right now.
The January 6th insurrection, compared to what is happening right now on our streets, is a very clear example, Big, on how Trump uses certain opportunities to align himself with what he considers are patriots of America, and they look a certain way.
Right.
And they stormed the Capitol. Mm-hmm. But he didn't call the National Guard.
Right.
He didn't call the Marines. He let law enforcement within the Capitol building also put their lives at risk, and people died. No one's died in Los Angeles. People are taking to the streets because they're using their First Amendment rights to protest and to fight for their families. And it doesn't look the way that he wants it to look. So now he sent the National Guard. For whatever reason, he doesn't consider us to be patriots either.
Right.
But January 6th insurrectionists who look a certain way, who wave the Confederate flag around, that's okay by him and pardon them. But now he wants to prosecute and even has threatened to arrest Governor Newsom.
Right.
Because he's protecting our state.
Right. And even with the military parade, he said if you even show up. So that means even in a peaceful protest, if you show up, you will be met with force.
And here's the part that gets me for everybody that says, I love America, right? I love this country. What do you love about it when you have a president that's literally destroying our First Amendment rights and our Constitution? Mm-hmm. Do you love it because it aligns with your values, but as soon as it doesn't, then you're not going to love it anymore?
Right.
Do you only love it when it protects you and your family? Like all those, the Latinas for Trump now saying, this is not what I voted for. Right. Why? Because Cubans voted for Trump and now he's taking away their citizenship. Now you're no longer okay with it. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting to me how even some Latino voters who voted for Trump, or even Cubans who voted for Trump, were left Cuba because of a dictatorship, what they called a dictatorship, but now are supporting what is becoming a dictatorship in our own country, and now seeing the repercussions of that. And now all of a sudden, because it's impacting them, now they don't align with it. Now they're, saying this is not what we voted for. He told you all along what he was about.
Right. And
now he's just making it a reality.
You're supposed to believe him. When somebody tell you something, you believe them. Yeah. You believe them. Now we have a curfew. I knew that this curfew was going to come. Mm-hmm. We have a curfew for downtown Los Angeles, and the curfew is what, 8 p.m. to 6?
8 p.m. to 6 a.m.
But we've seen a lot happen before 8 p.m. And it's going to be hard if they go into a whole military, some kind of shutdown. It's going to be hard to get people back in the house. We've seen going back in the house with COVID. You know what I'm saying? We went in, so it's going to be hard. But when you look at the television and you see a peaceful protest, and there's a lot of peace that's going on out there. But when you do look at it, and this is a lot of the opposition that we're getting as well, Wendy, when you see someone going into a Nike store, or you see someone, hitting a cannabis shop, or it becomes I and me as opposed to us and we. How do we get our voices out there to tell people that those cameras are being swung in that direction and they're showing you what's wrong with the protest as opposed to what's right with the protest?
Right.
So what do you say with your voice to people in Los Angeles about when we do show up? How do we show up?
There's, in protest and in protest culture and in everything that's going on, I understand why people are angry when they're having,
we were talking about that.
Right, when they're having their family members being torn away. How many videos are there right now of children crying for their moms and their dads who are being taken? Young people who are crying for their parents because they're being taken literally off the streets or from their cars. We've seen videos of alleged ICE agents cracking down on windows and pulling people out of cars, chasing them down a field, going into graduations and taking people. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it because the frustration and anger is real. So I'm sorry if you are uncomfortable with the 101 freeway being taken over by people that feel like this is the way that their voice is being heard. But patriots have, in the history of our nation, thrown tea into a harbor. They have marched on Selma. They have marched in Delano. These manifestations of who we are as a nation are real, and people are taking to the streets. There will always be certain individuals who cause chaos. And unfortunately, that is where the media is focusing on. And
I've
people,
seen that.
right? And people feel like, oh my God, Los Angeles is burning down. No, this is a concentration of a few blocks in the city of Los Angeles. And yes, I don't condone that violence. I don't condone the looting, none of that, because it takes away the attention from what's actually happening to people. But some might also argue, well, if there are more federal agents and National Guard on the streets focusing on the protest, then maybe they're not focusing on the families. And that's an argument, but it's not an argument that's going to actually help us with our cause.
Yeah, and I just say protest with purpose as well. Protest with purpose. Now, you're running for state senate now.
Yes, I am.
What does that mean for us, Wendy Carrillo?
So one thing that people are talking about a lot is, why is local law enforcement collaborating with ICE? I actually wrote a policy, it was called the Vision Act, AB 937, that would stop all the collaboration between local law enforcement at all 58 counties across the state with ICE. We knew what was coming. We knew how our communities would be affected. Our California public tax dollars should not be used for federal purposes, plain and simple. ICE can do their jobs, but there's no need for us to aid them in doing that. That policy made it all the way to the state Senate, and despite a Democratic majority, it missed it by 2 votes. And there were several Democrats that could have voted for it and didn't.
And we fast forward to today, and look where we are.
And now people are like, why are they collaborating? Because what does sanctuary state really mean? It's a false promise when every county across our state is able to create their own policies. We need a full state policy on what that looks like. A second version of that policy made it out of the Senate and went to the governor's desk, and he vetoed it. And so here we are, right, in this situation that we have. So I'm running for state Senate because I believe we need courageous and bold and unapologetic leadership in our state that actually understands what people are living through on the ground, and how we change our policies to ensure that local law enforcement, yes, they should collaborate with ICE when we're talking about, real criminals that are actually impacting our communities. But Jose down the street and Doña Maria, your next door neighbor, and, all these folks that are being impacted now, that's not what ICE should be focusing on if they truly were going to go after real criminals. And that's not the reality right now. So I know that our legislature, our state Senate has the responsibility and obligation to do what's right for people. And I'm not seeing that right now. And so the fight continues, and I'm excited to potentially be able to return to the Senate and work on policies that affect, that impact our families in the most positives of ways, and talk about issues like the affordability crisis. No one can afford to live here. You can't afford gas. You can't afford food. You can't afford rent. You can't afford to buy a home. I understand why people are pissed off, right? Why they're marching, why they're, upset at the circumstances of their lives. You tell them, go to school, go to college, things will work out. And guess what? You end up in debt. You can't afford to live here. Jobs don't pay enough. And so there's frustrations about how the state has managed the lives of everyday people. And we get to change that, and we get to fix that. But it only happens by electing people that have your same lived experience. I grew up in my community, proud Roosevelt Rough Rider from Boyle Heights.
Hello.
And I'm formally undocumented. I've talked about that in the past, but I had a pathway to citizenship. And I understand what these families, what all of our families are going through, because I've lived it.
Wendy, what do you feel about people that say my vote doesn't count?
I would say, what you and I have talked about in the past. If you say your vote doesn't count, you're basically giving up your vote to someone else. You're making someone else make that decision for you. Right?
And how do we go about following what's going on with you for state Senate?
It's easy to follow me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, whatever, at Wendy Carrillo. It's just my name.
Oh, you found, man, I was trying to secure that too. I was trying to lock down on it and sell it back to you. You know,
at Wendy Carrillo or wendycarrillo.com.
I heard that, man, and you did an amazing job as an assembly member, and I can't wait to see what's going on with the state senate as well. Is there anything, Wendy, before we break out?
I would like to just remind your listeners of what they can do and should do to be able to get help. So if you know someone or loved one that has been detained, or you potentially are afraid of being detained, don't say anything. Don't sign anything. You have the right to remain silent. It goes both ways, right? You have a right to remain silent. You have a right to ask for an attorney. Write down these numbers. This is the California Rapid Response Network. It's 1-800-313-7324.
Give it to them one more time.
1-800-313-7324. CHIRLA is the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights in Los Angeles, has an immigrant assistance hotline. It's 1-888-624-4752.
And we'll post those numbers as well.
You have a right to due process. You have a right to ask for a judge. Don't sign anything because you may be giving your rights away, especially if it's in a language that you don't understand or that you don't read.
And, you know, and those things sound great, but people are scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be afraid to say, you know, I want to speak to my lawyer. Because, you know, they're going to say, you don't have a lawyer. You know, like there's things that's happening and when we see due process, but there's things that's happening that's not cookie cutter. So I'm glad that we're getting the information out there and people need the information, but people are really scared. And I don't know how challenging, so-called challenging people will be. But if you have that information, please, if you can, remain silent.
Mm-hmm.
Give me my lawyer. Like, do those things because there is no due process. And they are snatching people up. And sometimes you're not even, you know, you don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. You
won't see your family. It could be 72 hours if you're lucky, you know.
I would say the best defense that we have is our Constitution. So lean on that and say, it is my constitutional right to due process, to see a judge and ask for an attorney, and I do not need to sign anything. Just saying that is incredibly powerful to anyone, especially federal agents or anyone that works in government that understands that, and whether they follow it or not is a different situation. But at least us understanding what our rights are is critical in this moment. You don't have to answer the door. Right. You have a right to ask for a warrant. No one can enter your home or search your vehicle without a warrant. And so these are important things that we need to just remind folks of, that these are your constitutional rights.
Are you surprised that we're here, or did you feel we're going to, let me answer that before I even ask. I knew things were going to be bad, but I didn't think they were going to be this bad.
Mm-hmm.
And this real and this fast and this chaotic. I didn't think it was, I knew something, but I didn't know that we were literally going to have people that's afraid right now. Because I told the neighborhood, I said, you know what, this is going to happen. It's going to be license, insurance, proof of citizenship. Mm-hmm. We're beyond that now. You know, that didn't even happen. It's like we jumped over that. And real people are frightened for real reasons right now, because it's not about the drug dealer. It's not about the rapist. It's not about the criminal. It's about the person that's sitting there and trying to do a job, just trying to go to their kids' graduation, trying to drive to work, trying to be at work, trying to be at a place where they can get picked up to get work done. So we're seeing a lot more than what I thought and what I bargained. Not even what I bargained for, what I thought I was going to see.
We live in different worlds in the same world, right? Different people live in different worlds. Yeah. It's like a economic differences.
Not only economic.
Right? Racial, ethnic, cultural, everything in between. And so, I have friends that are currently on a vacation that they planned months ago. No one knew that this was going to happen. So how do you live your life while also being present and showing up for others? And so this is where I would ask, your listeners and allies to show up. This is not a Latino issue. Right. This is not just about, brown folks. This is about everybody, because when they come for me first, guess who they're going to go for next?
Yeah, and we've seen it.
And so I just want to, focus on the families, that this is not just about undocumented people. This is also about Trump going after and really going after everyone that he is discriminating against. So Carrie Lopez was 28, pregnant, U.S. citizen, detained by ICE. Leonardo Garcia was a construction worker in Foley, Alabama. He was filming an ICE raid, got tackled, and while he was saying I'm a U.S. citizen, they didn't believe in his real ID card. David Huerta, U.S. citizen, labor leader, also detained. And there's all of these stories of U.S. citizens being detained simply because they look a certain way. So this is a moment where everyone shows up, that we see history repeating itself. And I will end with this very powerful narrative by, and now, of course, I'm not able to pull it up as I wanted to pull it up, by Anne Frank. At 13 years old, wrote, "People are disappearing, families are being torn apart, people are scared, children are going home to find their parents no longer at home." This is very real. She wrote that when she was 13 years old.
The Diary of Anne Frank.
The Diary of Anne Frank. History repeats itself. And if you're asking yourself, where would you have been at that time? Ask yourself, if an immigrant family was asking for shelter, would you shelter them? That is the moment that we're living in right now. And it is very real and it's very scary for a lot of people. And so we just need to be vigilant and understand how this impacts all of us.
Former Assembly member running for state Senate, Wendy Carrillo, thank you so much for being in the neighborhood.
Thank you,
I appreciate you, my love. Wendy Carrillo in the neighborhood, Big Boys Neighborhood.